Welcome to the Darkstream, Voxday, voxday.net, and that was Sacris Solemnis, and by their fruits you can know them. By their fruits you shall know them. And that's my response to people who question AI, who say that, oh, it's demons talking, or it's spiritually dangerous, or that sort of thing. The lyrics for that song were actually written by none other than St. Thomas Aquinas. It uses the first three stanzas of a prayer he wrote, one of 5 prayers that he wrote, called Sacris Solemnis. I took one of the extra I's out just to make it clear that it's not the actual prayer. It's a prayer that's commonly used around the celebration of Corpus Christi. And as you can probably tell, it is very, very, very heavily influenced by Enigma, who is, to this day, one of my all-time favorite bands. A lot of people don't know that Enigma has like 7 albums after the one that made them famous. And they're all, at the very least, interesting. But I made that because I was, well, partly just because I've tried with the different versions of Suno to do something in that vein. This is the first time, 4.5 is the first time that I've been successful in any regard. But anyhow, based on the comments, a number of you seem to enjoy that, and so I'm pleased to hear that. I'll put it up here in the Voxophonic section tonight after we make the stream go live. But I actually have an announcement to make, which I've made on the blog, so it's not going to be a surprise to any of you. We'll switch back over to this view. All right, we don't have my mic on. There we are. So I created 3 days ago, this is the 3rd day of it, a new Substack called AI Central. And I think it's going to be very popular based on the initial experience. So AI Central is intended to be a place for all sorts of AI creators to discuss reviews of new engines, to discuss some of the various issues. For some reason, I do not know how, my literary review of DeepSeek, ChatGPT, and Claude 4.0 Sonnet somehow turned into a discussion of should you be polite to machines. My position on that, by the way, is yes. I am always polite to my new best friend. And if you've read The Polite Elephant, then you know that you have to know the right things to say and do. So be polite. But anyhow, so this is the new AI Central Substack. Posts are going to go up every day, initially from me, but we've already got a guest post from Marku on how to build your own local DeepSeek based on your own data rather than whatever it can grab from the internet. We've got one on text AI, one on music AI, which talks about how A Drink with a Coconut came about, the Vibe Patrol song. And tomorrow is going to be a real banger of a post because the audio engineer with whom I've been working has graciously provided me with a write-up on mastering AI and why the 12 stem the ability to split a song into 12 stems on Suno is not quite as useful as you might have thought it was at first glance. So anyhow, does anyone have, there's no, the fixed chat window no longer displays how many people are here. Can somebody tell me, do you see that on your Windows at all when you're watching the stream? It might be useful to know if if I'm talking to like 4 people or 40. Also want to say thank you, Skydog. He sent a super chat saying, have an M Bolster tribute bolster. M Bolster was the guy who always sent a super chat every single time I did a stream on YouTube. And so it was kind of his thing. And it's nice to know that he's remembered. Good to know that he's remembered, if only by Skydog and myself. So anyhow, yeah, so the new site has come up. It's off to a serious start. It's already got like over 700 subscribers in the first 3 days. I'm getting contacted by a lot of people who don't read me, which is really encouraging, like people who have no idea who I am. Thanks, Lady Pitbull Bear. She says, I do not see account. Okay, well, we just won't worry about it. But yeah, that'll be one for the devs. I've mentioned it before. It's always kind of funny how, like, if it's something that they perceive to be a bug, it's like top priority. But when it's just something like, hey, is anybody here? Doesn't matter whether it's YouTube or UATV, they're always like, yeah, well, do they really need to know? Skydog says the DeepSeek local article was pure gold. Yeah, it was. Marku really outdid himself on that one. Taryn says, on a Sunday, I made it home just in time. Well, I'm afraid you actually missed the new song. But don't worry, we actually opened with it. But you can check it out as soon as the stream gets uploaded. So, and I'll put it up in the Voxophonic section too. Brand new, totally new. Broken Arrow Bear is very generous. Sends a $20 super chat and says, Happy Father's Day, Vox. I actually have kind of a funny Father's Day story for you guys, since you bring it up. Now, as you probably know, I am very, very unaware of dates, times, that sort of thing. It's just not really something that I keep track of. I am even worse when it comes to holidays. I'm pretty much dependent on my friends to remind me when like Mother's Day is coming up and that sort of thing, you know. And so, anyhow, it was mildly amusing today because Space Bunny wasn't around. Nobody was around. I was literally, I mean, nobody was around from the time I got up. And so I didn't think anything of it, you know. People are busy with their jobs, with the horses, with church, all that kind of stuff. No problem. Anyhow, I get an email from one of the folks I work with in music, and it's just a regular email, but then it mentioned Happy Father's Day. I was like, oh, okay, well, Happy Father's Day to you. And then I get a call from Space Bunny, and we're just talking, and I made a comment about how I thought it was funny that I got a Happy Father's Day wish from this guy. And she's like, yeah, we were all kind of hoping you wouldn't notice. I said, what are you talking about? And apparently they got the dates wrong, and they were all planning to do it next week. And when they realized late in the week that they had made a mistake and that it wasn't, that the Father's Day was actually coming up, they just thought, yeah, you know what? There's probably a pretty good chance he won't even know. And it's true. I would have had no idea except for I'd mentioned that, and then Space Bunny admitted that everybody had messed up the date, which frankly is probably one of the greatest gifts you can give to a father like me, because, like now, every time I forget something, I have, well, hey, you you forgot Father's Day. So not quite as good as my best friend's gift from his wife on their wedding day. My friend is actually he's worse about time than I am, and he's just as bad about dates. He never has any idea what time it is. He never has any idea what the date is. And so he's always late. I mean, reliably late. And so we're at the church, and like it's 20 minutes after when the wedding's supposed to start, and she's still not there. Everybody's in there. They're all sitting down, and some of the women are starting to get stressed and that sort of thing. And somebody asked my friend, are you concerned that she might not show up? And he was looking so happy, and he's like, no, she'll be here. He said, I'm not worried about that at all. He said, I'm just so happy that she's late. And I started laughing, and they said, why are you so happy that she's late? He said, because no matter what happens, I will always be able to say, honey, you were late to our wedding. So, it's all good. It's all good. But yeah, I put up a post about fathers on Sigma Game today, and just reflecting on the concept of the father as the situational alpha, and how that's a challenge for those of us who are not alphas. But so maybe worth checking out if you're interested. Taryn sends a super chat. Thank you, Taryn. Vox, are you aware of the Book of Hours woven from silk thread? I am not. That sounds really cool. I'm very into books of hours. You probably noted that the cover of Summa Helvetica, also inspired by Aquinas. By the way, Taryn, this will amuse you. The new song has lyrics written by Thomas Aquinas, none other than the great Ox himself. But no, that sounds really cool, and I'd like to see it. Les Laboureurs, poème tiré de Jocelyn, reproduit en caractère tissé avec licence de propriétaire. Okay, I'll check it out. Probably difficult to bind in leather, but maybe a reproduction at some point. I don't know. We'll have to see. So, anyhow, that's pretty much all I had to. I'm researching the methods to see if I can. You're trying to reproduce it in silk? That sounds challenging. I mean, interesting task to be sure, but challenging. Anyhow, that's really all I had to say for the moment about AI and music and that sort of thing. We can talk a bit about the situation in the Middle East. I should probably check out to see what the latest is in the Middle East before I spout off on something that's hours out of date or already. So we'll go and check and see what our friend Mr. Turner has to say, since he's actually been very good on this. Okay, Iran Parliament to vote tomorrow withdraw from nuclear non-proliferation treaty. Well, that seems pretty obvious at this point. If you're getting bombed, even though you belong to it, what's the point in belonging to it? And closing the Strait of Hormuz. Okay, let's read this here. Which would halt about 20% of the global daily oil flow. Yeah, I wish I'd gone ahead and bought the oil last week like I was contemplating. So anyhow, just a lot of survivalist stuff, not very interesting. All right, there's nothing new. Other than, it says, the U.S. has committed in the past to use force to keep the Strait of Hormuz open. So if Iran closes it, we absolutely positively are likely to see the U.S. using force against Iran. I don't think that's necessarily true. then Russia and China step in to back their ally Iran. In fact, both Russia and China are already shipping plane loads of military supplies into Iran, etc., etc., etc. Well, look, at this point, I'm pretty sure that even the most rabid warmongers in the U.S. Congress at least have some clue that it's not 1975 anymore. It's also not 2005, and the situation is very different than when the U.S. was one of the two superpowers or the one global superpower. You know, we've already seen that the U.S. can't fight Russia. The idea that Iran can be bombed into submission is obviously stupid. You know, Ukraine has been under attack for how long? From bigger, more dangerous missiles than Israel has to send against Iran. Quite possibly bigger than anything the U.S. can send against Iran that isn't nuclear. And what are they going to accomplish? Dan in Alabama has an excellent point. The U.S. couldn't even stop the Houthis in Yemen. They're not going to stop Iran. Iran is a big country. What's the population? Like 90 million? Let's look this up. Iran population. Okay. Yeah, as of November 2024, Iran's population is estimated to be around 91.5 million. And how big is Iran geographically? Size of Iran compared to USA. Just put it. Iran covers an area of approximately 1.648, so 1.65 million square kilometers. It's about the size of Alaska. So it's less than, as a total, how about compared to continental USA? This is about a quarter the size, maybe? So anyhow, that's not very useful there. It's bigger. Iran is 5 times bigger than Italy. So it's 5 times bigger than Italy. It's half again more populous than England, than the UK or Germany. And you think that you're going to, defeat it easily by dropping bombs on them? I mean, Russia can hit Ukraine at will. They've got Oreshniks. Yeah, they've got all kinds of hypersonic missiles. In fact, Iran has some better missiles than either Israel or the US. They've already used at least one hypersonic missile on Israel. They supposedly have tens of thousands of missiles, and they're not sending them because they are, so far, Iran's response has been very restrained. Ironically, the Israelis are trying to cry that they're being barbaric. They bomb civilians. It's like, have you paid any attention to what you've been doing in Gaza? Or what you've been doing in Beirut? Or what you've been doing in Tehran, in Tehran? I mean, for crying out loud, at this point, I'm not into casually slinging around the term terrorist state. I think it's used way too easily. But when you're bragging about setting up car bombs in another country, in the city, how is that not terrorism? I mean, car bombs is one of the most fundamentally terroristic acts. What's next? Hijack hijack a passenger airplane? I mean, it's obvious and overt terrorism. They're just, we don't have another word to describe that. You know, when the U.S. Army invaded Normandy, they were not secretly setting up car bombs, you know. And so, um, now I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not going to make any sort of prediction because there's too many variables, and I don't know. I don't even understand why President Trump hasn't made it very, very clear. We will not go to war with Iran under any circumstances. Not if there's another false flag in New York. Not if the Strait of Hormuz is closed. We're not doing it. That's the smartest thing he could do. But, you know, what do you do? Claude Hopper says Israel doesn't use the planes as bombs, just a cover story for saboteurs. Well, I mean, they obviously had some missiles striking there. I mean, they flew the planes up. Now, I don't believe that the planes ever entered Iranian airspace. Iran's air defenses are too good. You know, I think that they sent in the saboteurs and the, you know, various underground teams, just like the U.S. did in the Gulf War. You know, they try to act. They always try to portray that things are bigger and better than they actually are. You know, the U.S. is trying to say, "Oh, well, we've got little cameras in the front of the missiles." No, they don't. They had snipers inside Baghdad painting the targets with lasers. You know, Israel's probably doing something similar in that regard. Oh, you're talking about 9/11. Yeah. Yeah, so anyhow, you know, what appears to be going on, and this is something that Simplicius has mentioned, I've mentioned it ahead of time, and I think McGregor is also, this is also McGregor's opinion, but Israel knows it can't do anything much to Iran. It can kill some scientists, it can kill some politicians, you know, okay. But in terms of defeating the Iranian people, who lost 1 million people fighting Iraq and still defeated Iraq, you know, remember, in the Iran-Iraq war, Iran won. They stopped under pressure from the rest of the world, but they won. And you know, there's the only thing that prevents Israel from being overrun by Iran is the fact that it's, you know, separated by 500 kilometers or 600 kilometers or so. That doesn't mean that you can't piss them off enough to have them, you know, send the army that way, but it's unlikely. It's very unlikely. The point is that Israel knows that they can't beat Iran, and they probably can't even come out ahead in a pure exchange of missiles. Maybe, you know, if nukes are even real, which I don't think that we can be 100% sure of. I mean, if you think about two countries that are known for lying and bluffing more than any other, it's the USA and Israel. How come nobody else has ever used a nuke? How come the crazy, insane North Koreans have never used a nuke? How come Pakistan managed to get a nuke in like 2 weeks, and Iran hasn't been able to in the last 25 years, despite the fact that they're supposedly just weeks away from it? You know, I don't know that Owen is right, but Owen has been right far too many times to discount the possibility that there are no nukes, that nukes just don't fundamentally work. And And so if that is the case, then Iran definitely has the advantage in a conventional exchange of missiles. And although Israel can hurt Iran, Iran can probably hurt Israel a lot worse if they want to. So far, they've indicated that they don't want to. So this is why the Israelis are trying to, cry all the crocodile tears and provoke Iran into hitting them hard enough that the U.S. will come in and do their dirty work for them. I don't believe that's going to happen. Not just because of Trump. Trump doesn't like war. If there's one thing that we know about Trump, he doesn't like war. And the U.S. public has no interest in war with Iran. None whatsoever. And Pakistan's already made it clear that if anyone uses a nuke on Iran, they'll use a nuke on Israel. So that should pretty much put an end to that whole sort of argument. Any idea that Pakistan is going to come in against Iran was pretty much went away with that announcement. Now China, I think, as with Ukraine, probably wouldn't be terribly upset if the U.S. did get involved. They would put out their usual statement about how, war is not a appropriate resolution of differences, and they urge both sides to be reasonable, and they offer their good services to help reach peace, blah, blah, blah. But I don't think that the Chinese would be shedding too many tears to watch the U.S. use up its remaining military strength against the Iranians rather than trying to keep Taiwan. I've always felt, in fact, that if the U.S. did get stuck in the Middle East, Taiwan would be gone within 2 weeks. Not gone. Let me rephrase that. The peaceful reunification of the two Chinas would take place. And I do think it would be peaceful because, none of the Taiwan independence forces have any desire or expectation of resisting if the U.S. is not involved. The irony is because of the U.S.'s former monopolar superpower status, all these other countries, their only plan for defense is, we'll let the U.S. fight. Well, that's not going to work for everybody. And at this point, it doesn't appear like it's going to work for anybody, possibly including the United States. Like it or not, that's the situation. So anyhow, that's all I've got. So thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't signed up yet for a free subscription to AI Central, please go ahead and do so. I think Skydog's actually one of the first supporters, the paid subscriber. So that's always an option too if you like. But if you want to wait and make sure that it becomes what we hope it will become, which is the best site for general AI and its applications on the internet, by all means, wait and see. But anyhow, thanks for tuning in. I'm Vox Day, and this is the Darkstream.